friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, this is kind of an interesting topic I thought I would bring up, and some people might be surprised by the title that not all foods, not all things are worth preserving. Well, that's kind of surprising, isn't it? Because I'm always talking about putting up food, and yes, I put up a lot of food every year. Now, what I'm talking about is specifically anything that you don't already grow and raise. Obviously, if you're putting up your own fruits, vegetables, and herbs from your own garden, if you're putting up the eggs from your own chickens or the meat from your chickens or other meat animals, then yes, obviously it's worth it. Oh, and the dairy, of course, it is definitely worth it. If I had dairy animals, I would be dehydrating, canning my own milk from them and making my own butters. But I don't have dairy animals. I don't have a place for dairy animals. But I do dehydrate the eggs from my own chickens to put up so there's always eggs during that slower time of the year. Or if something happens to my chickens, and whether some kind of disease strikes them all, something, maybe a raccoon does someday, I highly doubt it could happen, but someday finds its way into the chicken coop and kills all my chickens, I want to know I have backups until I can replace my flock. So obviously, that's not what we're talking about. I'm not talking about the things that you already have coming in excess. I'm talking about the things you would have to buy in the first place because you can't grow it, don't grow it, can't have a garden, whatever it may be. Some things are definitely worth it if you can get a really good deal on those items. You know, it's that time of the year, the produce stands are open, you're able to find good organic quality peaches, plums, carrots, and more for a good deal, green beans. Then that is worth, in that case, yes, it can be worth it to buy those things and can them up and put them up for the whole year or years to come. Until I started growing my own tomatoes, even when I first was growing my own tomatoes, I was still buying tomatoes at the local stand because we go through a lot of tomatoes. And so I would do that in the summertime when they would have those available. I'd purchase up some tomatoes and get those so I'd have plenty put up because we go through a lot of canned tomatoes. I'm talking pureed canned tomatoes. Of course, now I dehydrate those to save space in my pantry. Love it. And I don't peel them or anything. I just puree them all because everything they're going to get used in, I'm not using them in chunks or whole pieces. So that's going to be any of my Italian sauces for spaghetti, lasagna, pizza, for making chili, for making barbecue sauce, and the like. So to me, if my tomato harvest is kind of low, then yes, it's worth it for me to go buy some and dehydrate them up, or can them up. I haven't had to do that in years, but it could happen at some point. So that's when it can be worth it, is when you need more than what your garden's able to produce, because it's something that is a staple and you go through a lot of it. But on the other hand, there's things that are simply not worth the added time and effort to purchase that item, then preserve it. I'm talking like some things more specifically to me would be like carrots. Now, I do like to buy carrots and can them, but when it comes to dehydrating them, I have dehydrated my own carrots, and carrots are something I do use a lot in soups and sauces, especially the Mother Earth product, organic. They're dried, they're not freeze-dried. I love adding these. They're the perfect size to add to my Italian sauces, my soups, and more. I love these things. And yes, as long as I have my own carrots, I will also use those, especially in soups, because I cut them bigger. These are cut smaller. This more time goes into these. It's worth it to me to buy these. One of the things that is especially worth it for me to buy already dehydrated up are pretty much any kind of dairy powder. Now, I can and have dehydrated whole milk on a couple occasions, and I even have a video showing me using my dehydrators back here for dehydrating whole milk and making a powder that tastes just like the high quality store-bought organic powdered milk. Yes, buying the powdered milk is going to be more expensive than buying whole milk, or buying whole milk and maybe dehydrating it yourself, but there's also other costs to figure in there. And so what is your time worth? And how much electricity are you using? Now for us, because organic whole milk is already plenty expensive, it's worth it to me to go ahead and purchase the organic powdered whole milk from Azure Standard. And whatever other dairy powders that they are going to start getting in, like their buttermilk powder. I bought other types of dairy powders from other companies in the past through Amazon. Amazon, you can find the butter powder, it's not all organic though. But there's different companies, like Anthony's Goods is a real good one because they usually have the best price. And a lot of times you can find organic in some of these things, but butter powder, heavy cream powder, whole milk powder, and more. Cream cheese powder is another one. I can't remember if Anthony's has it, but there's Anthony's, Judy's, and Hoosier Hill Farm. What I'm going to do is link to a video that came out fairly recently that I did on how to use dairy powders, where I go in a little more depth about those. But at any rate, those things to me are worth it to purchase and stock up on. Now, there's certain things other things to consider are things that, things that you really shouldn't can or dehydrate, and that would be things like mayonnaise. I haven't tried dehydrating mayonnaise, but because it's got such a high fat content, I should try it at some point, making my homemade mayonnaise and taking a dollop of it and dehydrating it next time I got my dehydrators running. But certainly you wouldn't want to can it because it would ruin it. It would ruin it. Once you apply that kind of heat to it, it's not going to be the same. And I don't think it's even recommended to can mayonnaise in the first place, but you can look into that for yourself. But I still wouldn't do it, even if it turned out fine and it was totally safe to can, because homemade mayonnaise is so easy and quick to make. It only takes like 5 minutes to whip up a batch of mayonnaise. It's so super easy to do. I don't need to can it. I don't need to preserve it. And in most cases, the same applies to my soups and sauces. Now, every now and then, I might go ahead and make a huge batch of sauce, a huge batch of soup, or if I'm doing lots of soups back to back, then maybe can a bunch of that so I can have a ready-to-eat meal, just like that. Because you can, even if you have to eat it cold, you can eat it straight out of the jar. So I do like having some of that on hand, but typically what I'm doing, like let's say it's a chicken soup, I'm usually roasting a chicken or baking in an oven or on our wood stove. Then whatever doesn't get eaten that night, the meat gets used to make a few other different types of meals. And I go over that in my Making the Most of Leftovers series, which I'll link to that playlist down below, where I talk about different ways to use like leftover chicken, leftover elk or beef roast, so on and so forth. And then the bones get cooked down into a broth that then immediately just gets turned into a soup. When it's chicken, then we eat on that. That gets eaten on for a few days. But if it's a massive batch of soup, maybe I'll can it. One of these days, I'm going to try dehydrating some of my extra and see how that works for rehydrating. I just haven't done that yet. I'm going to try to remember. Part of it's just remembering. I'm going to try to remember to do that the next time I make a soup. But now when it's something like a turkey, because a turkey is so much bigger, and like I did this last time and we'll be doing again here shortly for Thanksgiving, is, roasting up a turkey for a family dinner, eat on that, take all the meat off, preserve it so I can use it for other things, and then cook those bones for a few days with enough water to make sure the bones are getting covered and a splash of homemade wine to really pull the minerals and gelatin out, and then let that cook for a few days, strain it out. I let it chill so I can scoop off the fat and then spread it on my dehydrator rack trays on the silicone and dehydrate it, and then I can take 4 cups of concentrated broth and make it take it down to 1 cup of dehydrated broth. And then the next turkey I do coming up here shortly, which I probably by the time you're seeing this video is already said and done, I should be able to top my jar off doing the same exact thing. That's worth it to me to dehydrate and put up, and having the dehydrated broth powder, it takes up far less room than canning it, the liquid broth, and also it's so easy and ready to use. You can add it to anything you want. So to me, that's worth preserving. But it's not often that I am going to preserve my sauces, whether it be barbecue sauce, spaghetti sauce, and so on, because to me, those things are easy enough to make up and just use. And then when I need it again, just make it up. So again, sometimes having a couple of those things on hand for something quick when you need it, it's like, oh, I really want spaghetti. I want some spaghetti sauce to go with it. Yes, that is really nice if it was kind of a last minute. And I like to cook my spaghetti sauce for several hours to really pull the lycopene out and improve the flavor of the sauce. But yeah, so in a pinch, it is nice having it canned. But to me, it's not worth it to put up a lot of that stuff and have it taking up a ton of space in my pantry. And I am pretty much an ingredient person for the most part when it comes to canning or dehydrating anything. I like to preserve ingredients rather than, like plain green beans, plain carrots, plain bone broth, or whatever it is. And then I can do to it whatever I want once I'm ready to use it. And another point I want to rehash in case I didn't say it clear enough, because I'm looking at my notes here, is that if it is a food that you commonly use and you can't grow enough or can't grow it at all, that is definitely worth it to buy as much as you can when it's on sale, as much as you can afford, and put up as much as you can. So again, like with me with the tomatoes or the carrots, or another one I like to put up is some organic cabbage. I like to buy it fresh, dehydrate it, and then preserve that. And then vacuum seal it in jars and then have it ready where I can add it to anything I want, be it I'm making cold cannon, I'm making kimchi even, or soup, whatever I want to use that cabbage in. There's certain things that are definitely worth it. Another one is mushrooms. I like, if I can get a whole bunch of mushrooms, good quality mushrooms, or I can find that, we have one of those rare opportunities we can actually get out when they're ready and get the chanterelle mushrooms and dehydrate those and put them up. Definitely worth it. But again, this is going to look different for each person. And so you got to just kind of examine what's your time worth when it comes to, I've been talking a lot about what's your time worth, but what's your time worth as far as putting up that particular product, and what's the cost and what can you buy it for, and what is it going to cost you in energy consumption to either can or dehydrate or even freeze dry those particular items? Would you just be better off to conserve the time that goes into that to put into something else and just go ahead and buy yourself some organic, dehydrated carrots to add to the carrots you already grow, like I do, because we do still grow carrots. It's just we don't always get as many as I would like to get every year. Some years we do great, some years we don't. So these are all things to consider, and I just gave you a few of my own examples. Everybody, again, is going to be different. And with that being said, please share with us down below, what are the things that are not worth it for you to preserve yourself, that just makes more sense for you to buy already packaged to put into your pantry for long-term storage? Because these things, they stay in the packages like this until I open them up. Then I'll pour them into a jar that I'll keep in my kitchen and work through it that way. I just want people to realize there's freedom when it comes to putting up food. You don't have to go through all the work of freeze drying, canning, or dehydrating everything. You just got to figure out your cost and what the time and all that is worth to you, according to you, your area, and all that. So never feel guilty about that. It's better to do what you can and take that money and use it as wisely as possible, and just get something healthy put up in your pantries to get you through those difficult times, whatever they may be. Remember, I always say it can be just some event that only affects you and your family. People always assume that people that prepare, just like people did back in the day before that preparedness became a word, it was just how people lived. People put up food. They put up the food that they came in from the garden, or they put up stuff just to get them through hard times because they knew hard times could come. And they were always ready. And that's just the way it is. And a hard time doesn't have to affect a whole community or state or country. It can just affect you in your own little world. And that's what we're preparing for first and foremost. And then if something bigger happens, well, good, we're as prepared as we can be for that as well. So anyway, Hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.